The voicemail started with my mother's sugar-coated tone, the one she uses when she's about to ask for something unreasonable. Honey, I know this is last minute, but we need you to watch Tommy for 10 days while your sister and I take our cruise. 10 days with my hyperactive 4-year-old nephew while they sailed the Caribbean. If you can't help family when they need it, then I don't know what kind of daughter I raised. That's when I decided to teach them exactly what kind of daughter they raised, and it wasn't the pushover they expected. By the time their cruise ended, they'd learned a lesson about taking advantage of family that they'd never forget. But before we continue, check if you're already subscribed to the channel and write in the comments. Where are you watching this video from? I stared at my phone, replaying Mom's voicemail for the third time in my downtown Chicago office. Outside my window, Lake Michigan stretched endlessly under the October sky, as gray as my mood. At 32, I'd built a successful marketing consultancy from scratch, working 70-hour weeks for the past 5 years. My calendar was booked solid for the next month. Sarah, you've got that look again, my assistant Jessica said, poking her head into my office. The one you get when your family calls. I set the phone down and rubbed my temples. Mom wants me to babysit Tommy for 10 days. Starting tomorrow. Jessica's eyebrows shot up. Tomorrow? Isn't that your nephew who finger-painted your living room walls last time? The memory made my eye twitch. 4-year-old Tommy had turned my pristine white walls into a Jackson Pollock nightmare with permanent markers while I'd stepped out to sign for a package. It took 3 coats of primer and a professional cleaning service to fix the damage. My sister Rachel had laughed it off, calling it artistic expression. They're going on a Mediterranean cruise, I continued, checking my calendar. I've got 3 client presentations this week, including the Morrison account I've been courting for 6 months. The Morrison account alone was worth $200,000 in annual revenue. I'd been preparing for months, studying their market position, crafting the perfect pitch. The presentation was scheduled for Thursday, right in the middle of Mom's proposed babysitting marathon. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Mom told me the good news. Tommy's so excited to stay with his favorite aunt. We leave at 6 a.m. tomorrow, so we'll drop him off around 5:30. Thanks, sis. You're the best. I hadn't agreed to anything yet. The assumption that I'd drop everything for their vacation stung worse than the short notice. This was classic family dynamics. Rachel got to be the fun sister who traveled and lived spontaneously, while I was the responsible one who handled the messy details. My intercom crackled. Sarah, your 2 o'clock is here. I straightened my blazer and tried to push family drama aside. The Hendricks couple needed a complete rebrand for their restaurant chain, and unlike my family, they actually respected my time and expertise. The call started during my meeting with the Hendricks. Mom first, then Rachel, then Mom again. By the time I walked my clients to the elevator, my phone showed 6 missed calls and a string of increasingly desperate text messages. Mom, please call me back. This is important. Rachel, Sarah, we really need you. The cruise is non-refundable. Mom, your sister is counting on this trip. She's been so stressed with the divorce. There it was. Rachel's divorce had become the family's excuse for everything. Never mind that she'd been the one having an affair with her personal trainer. Never mind that her ex-husband Brad was actually a decent guy who'd been blindsided by her infidelity. In Mom's narrative, Rachel was the victim who deserved our support and sacrifice. I called Mom back on my drive home, using the car's Bluetooth system so I could keep both hands on the steering wheel. Chicago traffic demanded full attention, especially on the Kennedy Expressway during rush hour. Finally, Mom answered before the first ring finished. I was starting to worry you'd gotten my messages. I got them. I'm just not available to babysit, Mom. I have 3 major client meetings this week. Surely you can reschedule a few appointments. This is family, Sarah. The word family had become Mom's trump card, the guilt-inducing magic word that was supposed to make me drop everything. It used to work. Not anymore. These aren't just appointments. They're presentations I've been preparing for months. The Morrison account alone could make or break my business. Your sister needs this, Sarah. The divorce has been so hard on her, and Tommy misses having a father figure around. I bit back my first response, which involved pointing out that Rachel had created her own problems. What about Brad? He loves Tommy and has joint custody. He's being difficult about the extra days. You know how men get during divorces. Actually, I knew Brad was being reasonable. Rachel had already used up her flexibility with custody arrangements for 2 previous weekend trips. The man deserved to see his son on his scheduled days. Mom, I can't do it. I'm sorry, but the timing doesn't work. The silence stretched long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Then came the voice I remembered from childhood, the one that could cut through steel. I'm very disappointed in you, Sarah. When did you become so selfish? The word selfish hit like a physical slap. Growing up, it had been mom's nuclear weapon, reserved for moments when guilt and obligation weren't enough to secure compliance. She'd used it when I chose Northwestern over the local state school, when I moved to Chicago instead of staying in our small Wisconsin hometown, and when I'd started my own business instead of taking a safe corporate job. I'm not being selfish, Mom. I'm being professional. I have responsibilities. Your nephew is your responsibility too. He's family. He's Rachel's responsibility. She chose to book this cruise without arranging childcare. Another silence, shorter this time but somehow more ominous. Your sister has been through enough. She deserves happiness after what Brad put her through. The revisionist history made my jaw clench. Brad hadn't put Rachel through anything except discovering her affair and filing for divorce. If anything, he'd been remarkably civil throughout the proceedings, focusing on Tommy's well-being rather than seeking revenge. Mom, I understand Rachel's going through a difficult time, but I can't sacrifice my career every time she needs something. Sacrifice? Mom's voice rose to the pitch she used when playing the wounded mother. Is that what you call helping family? A sacrifice? I pulled into my parking garage, grateful for the privacy. This conversation was heading toward emotional manipulation territory, and I needed to focus. I call it poor planning. You don't book a vacation without securing childcare first. We thought we could count on you. There it was. The assumption that had driven family dynamics my entire life. They could count on Sarah. Sarah would handle it. Sarah would drop everything, reschedule her life, and clean up whatever mess needed cleaning. Well, you thought wrong. I ended the call and sat in my car, hands shaking slightly from adrenaline. In 32 years, I'd never hung up on my mother. The silence felt both terrifying and liberating. My phone immediately started buzzing with texts, but I turned it face down and headed to my apartment. Whatever emotional warfare they were planning, I needed food and wine before engaging. My downtown loft felt like a sanctuary after the day's battles. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Chicago River, and the minimalist decor reflected the calm, organized life I'd built for myself. Everything had its place, everything served a purpose, and nothing happened without careful planning, unlike my family's chaos. By morning, my phone showed 23 text messages and 4 voicemails. I made coffee and steeled myself to review the damage while my espresso machine hissed in the background. Rachel, Sarah, please. I know we should have asked sooner, but this trip means everything to me. It's my first real break since the divorce started. Mom, I've already paid for the cruise. We can't get refunds this late. Rachel, Tommy specifically asked for you. He loves his Aunt Sarah more than anyone. That last message stung because it was probably true. Despite my busy schedule, I'd made an effort to be present in Tommy's life. I attended his preschool plays, remembered his birthday, and yes, I'd babysit him occasionally when Rachel needed genuine emergencies covered. But this wasn't an emergency. This was poor planning disguised as a family crisis. The voicemails escalated in emotional intensity. Mom's first message was disappointed but controlled. By the fourth, she was in full theatrical mode, complete with trembling voice and strategic pauses. Sarah, I don't understand what's happened to you. You used to be such a caring person. I'm worried that success has changed you, made you hard. Your sister is barely keeping it together, and Tommy needs stability. If you can't help when family really needs you, then I question the values your father and I tried to instill. My father, who'd been dead for 3 years, wouldn't have approved of this emotional blackmail. Dad had believed in personal responsibility and natural consequences. He'd taught me that helping people meant teaching them to help themselves, not enabling their poor choices. I poured my coffee and checked the weather. October in Chicago meant unpredictable temperatures and the need for layers. My first client meeting was at 9, and I needed to be sharp. The Hendricks restaurant chain was considering 3 different marketing firms, and I couldn't afford to lose focus over family drama. My phone rang as I buttoned my blazer. Rachel this time, calling at 7:15 in the morning. Please don't make me cancel this trip, Sarah. I'll owe you huge. You already owe me huge. Remember when I covered Tommy's medical bills last year while you were between jobs? That was different. I paid you back. 6 months later, and only after I threatened to take you to small claims court. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Rachel had conveniently forgotten how difficult she'd made that repayment process, dodging my calls and making excuses until I'd finally had enough. This is about the money, isn't it? She said finally. Fine, I'll pay you to babysit. It's not about money, Rachel. It's about respect. Respect? Rachel's voice turned sharp, losing the pleading tone she'd been using. You want to talk about respect? How about respecting family obligations? How about respecting the fact that I'm going through the worst time of my life? I walked to my window, looking out at commuters hurrying along the riverwalk below. Normal people with normal problems, heading to jobs where their boundaries were respected and their time was valued. Rachel, you created the worst time of your life. You had an affair, destroyed your marriage, and now you're facing the consequences. That doesn't mean everyone else has to drop their responsibilities to cushion your landing. The sharp intake of breath told me I'd crossed a line. In our family, we weren't supposed to acknowledge Rachel's role in her divorce. We were supposed to pretend it had been mutual, or better yet, entirely Brad's fault. I can't believe you just said that to me. I can't believe you thought you could book a cruise without arranging childcare and then guilt me into covering for your poor planning. Fine. Her voice turned cold. I'll tell Tommy that Aunt Sarah was too busy making money to spend time with him. I'll explain that work is more important than family. The threat hit its target. Tommy was innocent in all this, and the idea of him thinking I didn't care about him made my chest tighten. But giving in to emotional blackmail would only invite more of it. Tell Tommy that Aunt Sarah has important work commitments, but that she loves him very much and looks forward to spending time with him when it's properly planned. You're unbelievable. She hung up, leaving me with the echo of her anger and the certainty that I'd just declared war on my own family. My hands were shaking again, but not from fear this time, from rage. I'd been the responsible one my entire life. I'd worked through college while Rachel partied. I'd helped Mom with Dad's medical bills while Rachel was finding herself in California. I'd loaned money, provided emotional support, and covered countless emergencies that could have been avoided with basic adult planning. And now I was selfish for having boundaries. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. I hope you're proud of yourself. Your sister is in tears. I turned off my phone and finished getting ready for work. Today's meeting with Morrison Industries couldn't be postponed or rescheduled. Unlike my family's manufactured crises, this presentation had real consequences for my future. But as I rode the elevator down to the parking garage, a plan began forming in my mind. If they wanted to play emotional warfare, I had weapons they'd never seen me use. The Morrison presentation went flawlessly. 3 executives, 90 minutes of detailed market analysis, and a proposal that addressed every concern they'd raised in previous meetings. By the time I shook hands with their CEO, I knew I'd won the account. Sarah, this is exactly the fresh perspective we've been looking for, Morrison said, walking me to the elevator. We'll have contracts ready by Friday. $200,000 in annual revenue, secured because I hadn't let family drama derail my focus. The irony wasn't lost on me. Back in my office, I found Jessica fielding calls from reporters. Word about the Morrison deal was already spreading through Chicago's business community, and trade publications wanted quotes about my growing consultancy. Congratulations, Jessica said, handing me a stack of interview requests. You're officially Chicago's rising star in marketing consulting. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt the familiar ache of having no family to share the victory with. Mom and Rachel would dismiss this achievement as proof of my selfish priorities, never understanding that success required sacrifice and discipline. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Aunt Sarah, Mommy says you don't want to take care of me. Did I do something wrong? Tommy. My heart stopped. Rachel was using her 4-year-old son to send guilt texts. The manipulation had reached a new low, involving an innocent child who didn't understand the adult conflicts swirling around him. I called the number immediately. Rachel answered on the first ring. How dare you use Tommy to manipulate me? I didn't write that text. He did. He's 4 years old, Rachel. He can barely spell his own name. He used voice to text. He's upset that you don't want to spend time with him. The lie was so blatant, it was almost impressive. Tommy might be advanced for his age, but he wasn't sending grammatically correct text messages with perfect punctuation. If you ever use Tommy as a weapon against me again, I'll make sure Brad knows about it. I'm certain a family court judge would be interested in your manipulation tactics. The threat hung in the air between us. Rachel's custody arrangement was still being finalized, and any evidence of her using Tommy as an emotional pawn could impact the proceedings. You wouldn't. Try me. I hung up and immediately called Brad's number. He answered on the second ring, sounding tired but friendly. Sarah, hey. How are you holding up with all the family drama? You heard about the cruise situation? Brad's laugh had no humor in it. Rachel called asking if I'd take Tommy for 10 extra days so she and your mom could go on vacation. When I said I couldn't adjust my work schedule on 12 hours' notice, she accused me of being vindictive. I settled into my office chair, grateful to hear a reasonable voice. Brad had always been the stable presence in Rachel's chaotic life, the one who handled finances, planned ahead, and cleaned up messes. No wonder she'd grown bored with him. She's been guilt-tripping me for saying no to babysitting. Now she's using Tommy to send manipulative text messages. That's concerning, but not surprising. Her lawyer recommended leveraging emotional connections during custody negotiations. I've been documenting everything. The clinical way he discussed his ex-wife's manipulation tactics spoke volumes about how thoroughly Rachel had burned bridges. Brad wasn't angry anymore, just methodical in protecting himself and Tommy. Brad, I need to ask you something. Is there any chance you could take Tommy for those 10 days? Not to help Rachel, but because I have an idea that might teach both her and Mom a lesson they won't forget. I'm listening. I explained my plan, watching Brad's reflection in my office window as he considered the details. Outside, Lake Michigan stretched toward the horizon, as vast and unforgiving as the consequences I was contemplating. That's brilliant, he said finally. And honestly, it might be exactly what Rachel needs to understand that actions have consequences. We spent another 20 minutes working out logistics. Brad would take Tommy for the cruise period, something he could actually manage with his flexible work schedule. Meanwhile, I'd execute phase 1 of my plan. After hanging up, I opened my laptop and began researching Mediterranean cruise itineraries. If Mom and Rachel wanted to play hardball, they were about to discover I'd learned from the best, and I played to win. My first call was to Aunt Helen, Mom's older sister and the family's unofficial matriarch. Helen had always seen through Rachel's drama and appreciated my work ethic. More importantly, she had influence with Mom and the extended family. "Sarah, sweetie, I heard about the babysitting situation. Your mother called me in quite a state. What version did you hear? That you're too selfish to help family in need." Helen's tone suggested she wasn't buying the narrative. "But I remember when you took care of your father during his final months while Rachel was off finding herself in California. Funny how memory works, isn't it?" Helen's support felt like a lifeline. She'd been Dad's favorite sister-in-law, the one who'd helped him see through family politics to underlying truths. "Helen, I need to tell you what's really happening." I spent 40 minutes detailing the situation for Aunt Helen, from the last-minute cruise demand to Tommy's fake text message. She listened without interrupting, occasionally making disapproving sounds that reminded me of Dad. "Your sister has been enabled for too long," Helen said finally. "Your mother means well, but she's created a monster. Someone needs to hold Rachel accountable. I'm planning to do exactly that, but I need family support because this is going to get ugly. Count me in. What do you need?" Helen's connections throughout the extended family were legendary. She'd been the coordinator for reunions, the keeper of family news, and the unofficial judge when conflicts arose. Her opinion carried weight with cousins, aunts, and uncles across 3 states. I need people to know the truth before Mom and Rachel start their victim narrative, and I need documentation of Rachel's pattern of irresponsible behavior. Leave it to me. I've been keeping track longer than you know. After Helen, I called my cousin Mark, who worked in hotel management and owed me a favor from when I'd helped him land his current job. Then cousin Jennifer, who had connections at travel agencies. By evening, I'd assembled a network of family members who were tired of Rachel's drama and ready to support some tough love. My phone had been buzzing all afternoon with increasingly frantic messages from Mom and Rachel. I ignored them all, focusing on my legitimate work clients and letting my family stew in uncertainty. At 7 p.m., my doorbell rang. Through the security camera, I saw Brad standing in my hallway with Tommy. The little boy was bouncing excitedly, backpack over his shoulders, and his favorite stuffed dinosaur clutched in his arms. "Aunt Sarah!" Tommy launched himself at me the moment I opened the door. "Daddy says I get to have a sleepover at his house for lots of days." I hugged my nephew, breathing in the scent of grape juice and childhood innocence. Whatever happened between the adults, Tommy would be protected. That was non-negotiable. "That sounds like fun, buddy. Your daddy is the best at sleepovers." Brad stepped into my apartment, closing the door behind him. Phase 1 complete. Rachel thinks I'm being difficult about the custody schedule. She has no idea I'm doing this to help you. "What did you tell her?" "That my lawyer advised against any schedule changes during custody negotiations." Technically true, since he did warn me about appearing too accommodating. We watched Tommy explore my living room, marveling at the city lights visible through floor-to-ceiling windows. His excitement was infectious, and for a moment I almost regretted not taking the easy path of babysitting him. Then I remembered the guilt texts and emotional manipulation, and my resolve hardened. Friday morning arrived with unseasonable warmth for October in Chicago. From my office windows, I could see people shedding jackets as they walked along the Riverwalk, enjoying what might be the last pleasant day before winter settled in for good. My phone showed 37 missed calls and 62 text messages from Mom and Rachel. Their cruise was supposed to begin tomorrow, and they still had no childcare arranged. The panic in their messages was palpable. Mom, Sarah, please call me back. We're desperate. Rachel, I'll pay you anything. Please don't make me cancel this trip. Mom, your sister is having a breakdown. She needs this cruise for her mental health. Rachel, I already paid for everything. I'll lose thousands if we cancel now. I'd done my research. Their cruise package, including flights and hotel, was fully refundable up to 24 hours before departure. The financial pressure was manufactured drama, just like everything else. At 10 a.m., Jessica knocked on my office door. Your family's here, your mother and sister. They look intense. Through my glass office walls, I could see Mom and Rachel in the reception area. Mom wore her church dress and pearls, the armor she donned for important occasions. Rachel looked exhausted, mascara smudged, and hair less than perfectly styled. Send them in. And Jessica closed the door behind them. They entered like storm clouds, all righteous indignation and wounded dignity. Mom took the chair across from my desk while Rachel paced behind her, too agitated to sit still. Sarah, we need to talk. Mom's voice carried the authority she'd used throughout my childhood, the tone that brooked no argument. I'm listening. This has gone far enough. Your sister's mental health is suffering, and I'm worried about what this stress might do to her. Rachel's dramatic sigh provided the soundtrack to Mom's performance. They'd rehearsed this, probably during the drive downtown. I've arranged alternative childcare, I said calmly. Tommy will be well taken care of. Both women straightened, hope flickering across their faces. Mom leaned forward in her chair. You found a babysitter? I found his father. Brad has agreed to take Tommy for the cruise period. The hope died instantly, replaced by confusion and anger. Rachel stopped pacing and spun to face me. Brad said he couldn't change his schedule. He refused. Brad said he couldn't accommodate last-minute schedule changes forced by poor planning. This is different. He's choosing to help Tommy avoid the chaos you created. What's that supposed to mean? Rachel's voice rose dangerously. It means your son deserves better than being used as a guilt weapon. Brad will provide stable, loving care while you're gone. Mom's carefully composed facade began cracking. You went behind our backs and talked to Brad? After everything he put your sister through? Brad didn't put Rachel through anything. Rachel destroyed her own marriage with her affair, and now she's facing the consequences. The only person she's putting through anything is Tommy, who doesn't understand why his family uses him to fight their battles. The words landed like physical blows. Rachel's face went white, then red, then white again. Mom gripped the arms of her chair hard enough to make her knuckles pale. How dare you judge your sister's marriage? You don't know what she went through. I know she was sleeping with her personal trainer while Brad was working 60-hour weeks to support the family. I know she emptied their joint savings account to pay for a sports car Brad never knew about. I know she's been lying to everyone, including herself, about why her marriage failed. Rachel found her voice finally, though it came out as a whisper. Who told you that? Brad didn't have to tell me anything. You did during one of your wine-soaked confession sessions last year. You were proud of the affair then, remember? You said Marcus made you feel alive again. The silence in my office was absolute. Even the ambient sounds of downtown Chicago seemed to fade away, leaving nothing but the weight of exposed truth. Mom turned to stare at Rachel, pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. Rachel? Is this true? My sister collapsed into the remaining chair, all fight gone out of her. It wasn't supposed to happen. Marcus and I just connected, and Brad was always working, and I felt so alone. So you decided to blow up your family instead of talking to your husband about feeling neglected. Rachel buried her face in her hands, shoulders shaking. For a moment, I felt the familiar urge to comfort her, to fix her problems and absorb her pain. Then I remembered Tommy's fake text message and hardened my heart. This doesn't change anything, Mom said desperately. Rachel still needs this cruise. She needs time to heal. Rachel needs to face consequences for her choices. She needs to learn that other people aren't responsible for cleaning up her messes. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a folder I'd prepared the night before. Inside were printouts of text messages, documentation of Rachel's manipulation tactics, and a detailed timeline of her financial irresponsibility. This is what the past 2 years have looked like from my perspective, I said, sliding the folder across my desk. Every crisis I've fixed, every emergency I've funded, every boundary I've let you cross. Mom opened the folder reluctantly, her eyes widening as she scanned the contents. Bank transfer receipts, text message screenshots, even photos of the damage Tommy had done to my apartment during previous babysitting sessions. $43,000, Mom said, her voice barely audible. You've given Rachel $43,000 over the past 2 years. I'd done the math carefully, including direct loans, picked up tabs, emergency payments, and damage repairs. The number was staggering even to me when laid out in black and white. Plus my time, emotional energy, and professional reputation. Remember when I had to leave the Hartwell presentation early because Rachel needed someone to pick up Tommy from daycare? I lost that client. Rachel looked up from her hands, mascara streaking her cheeks. I always paid you back. You paid back maybe 60% and usually months late. The emergency car repair, the medical bills, the security deposit on your apartment, most of that money is gone forever. Mom flipped through more pages, finding documentation of Rachel's spending habits. Designer clothes purchased the same week she'd claimed to be broke. Expensive dinners out while asking me to cover Tommy's daycare fees. I didn't know, Mom whispered. You didn't want to know. It was easier to believe Rachel was a victim of circumstances than to admit she was creating her own problems. The folder also contained information I'd gathered through my extended family network. Rachel's pattern of borrowing money from relatives, then avoiding repayment, the drama she'd created at Cousin Mike's wedding when she'd brought Marcus as her date while still married to Brad, the lies she'd told different family members to keep her stories straight. Helen gave me some of this, I said, watching Mom's face. Mark provided the financial records. Jennifer documented the travel expenses Rachel claimed she couldn't afford. Everyone's been talking, Mom. Everyone knows the truth except you. Rachel stood abruptly, swaying slightly. I can't listen to this anymore. You're supposed to be my sister. I am your sister. That's why I'm trying to save you from yourself before you completely destroy your life and damage Tommy in the process. By humiliating me, by airing all our family business, by holding you accountable for the first time in your adult life. Rachel headed for the door, then turned back with a venomous expression I'd never seen before. Fine, we'll cancel the cruise. Are you happy now? I hope your precious business is worth destroying your family. She stormed out, leaving Mom and me alone in the sudden quiet. Outside my windows, Chicago continued its relentless pace, oblivious to the family implosion happening in my office. Mom closed the folder carefully, her movements slow and deliberate. When she looked up, her eyes were red-rimmed but clear. I failed both of you girls, didn't I? The question hung in the air between us, loaded with years of family dysfunction and misguided good intentions. Mom looked older suddenly, the weight of truth aging her before my eyes. You enabled Rachel and resented me for being responsible, I said gently. But it's not too late to change. Mom nodded slowly, tears threatening. I thought I was helping her. After the divorce, she seemed so fragile. She's not fragile, Mom. She's manipulative. There's a difference. We sat in silence while Mom processed information that contradicted 2 decades of mothering instincts. Outside, the lunch crowd was emerging from office buildings, heading to restaurants and coffee shops with the casual entitlement of people who'd never had their reality systematically dismantled. What happens now? Mom asked finally. That depends on whether you're ready to stop enabling her and start helping her grow up. Mom's phone buzzed with a text. She glanced at it and sighed. Rachel wants to know if I'm coming with her to cancel the cruise arrangements. Are you? A longer pause this time, filled with the weight of maternal love warring against brutal honesty. She booked the cruise herself. She can cancel it herself. The simple statement represented a seismic shift in family dynamics. For the first time in Rachel's adult life, Mom was refusing to cushion the consequences of poor planning. I need to call Helen, Mom continued, and probably Mark and Jennifer. I owe them apologies for dismissing their concerns about Rachel. They'll understand. Family loyalty can blind us to problems we don't want to see. My office phone rang, interrupting our moment of detente. Jessica's voice came through the intercom. Sarah, you have Brad on line too. He says it's about Tommy. I picked up the call, putting it on speaker. Brad, what's going on? Rachel just called demanding I bring Tommy to her apartment immediately. She's talking about canceling the cruise and needs to see him right away. But she sounded unstable. Mom and I exchanged glances. Rachel in crisis mode was unpredictable, capable of dramatic gestures that put everyone around her in uncomfortable positions. Where's Tommy now? I asked. At my place, happily building Lego castles. He doesn't know about any of this drama, and I like to keep it that way. Don't take him to Rachel's. If she wants to see Tommy, she can come to your place, but only if she's calm and stable. Mom leaned toward the phone. Brad, this is Susan. I think that's wise. Rachel needs time to process some difficult truths right now. The surprise in Brad's voice was evident. Susan? I didn't expect you to. Thank you for the support. 3 hours later, I sat in Brad's living room watching Tommy demonstrate his Lego engineering skills. The 4-year-old had no idea his mother was currently having a meltdown in her apartment, or that his family had spent the day confronting years of dysfunction. Look, Aunt Sarah, it's a castle with a dragon. Tommy held up his creation proudly, completely absorbed in childhood joy. That's amazing, buddy. The dragon looks fierce. Brad appeared in the doorway with coffee for the adults and apple juice for Tommy. Rachel finally called back. She's calmed down considerably. And, I asked, though Tommy's presence required careful language, she wants to talk to you. Asked if you'd come over after our little architect goes to bed. Tommy looked up from his Legos. Can Aunt Sarah read me a story tonight, Daddy? If she wants to, buddy. But first, let's finish this castle. 2 hours later, after stories and goodnight kisses, I drove through the Chicago evening to Rachel's apartment. The October air had turned crisp, carrying hints of the winter that would arrive sooner than anyone wanted. Rachel opened her door looking exhausted but sober. Her apartment, usually immaculate, showed signs of emotional upheaval. Tissues scattered on surfaces, coffee cups abandoned half empty, papers spread across her dining table. Thank you for coming, she said quietly. I wasn't sure you would. We're still family, Rachel, even when we disagree. She led me to the living room, where evidence of cruise planning lay scattered across her coffee table. Brochures, itineraries, confirmation numbers, all the documents that represented her dream vacation. I canceled it, she said, following my gaze. The cruise, the flights, everything. You were right about the refund policy. I settled into her couch, waiting for her to continue. Apologies from Rachel were rare and usually conditional. This felt different. I called Marcus too, told him we couldn't see each other anymore. That surprised me. Why? Because he was never about love. He was about avoiding my problems, pretending I could escape consequences by changing my scenery.